All right, welcome back to the Net to Net podcast. I'm your host, Sam Kelty, aka Skelt, and we're back with college football. Awesome week one, a lot of scoring from a lot of high power teams. Me being sick, didn't have much to do other than watch pretty much most of the games that happened over week one. Also, kind of looking back at week zero, we had Florida State versus Georgia Tech, Dublin, Ireland, when we saw that upset by Georgia Tech with a winning field goal at the end. And then Florida State coming off undefeated season, not making the playoffs, which everybody was pretty big surprise because they're a conference champions winners in the ACC, beating Louisville last year, going undefeated, not getting in due to the fact that Jordan Travis breaks his leg, is out for the season. They play differently without him. And in hindsight, you can say, yes, that's not the same Florida State team. But that's here and there. This is a new season. And they showed a little rust. We talk about a Florida State team with a new quarterback, and DJ Ungale struggled at times to throw the ball. And we've seen that throughout his time at Clemson, with Oregon State last year, and then now. And especially this is a Florida State team that is replacing a Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, Trey Benson on the offensive side, and then Jared Verse, Brandon Fisk on the defensive side to the NFL. A lot of growing pains probably for Mike Norvell. I feel one loss isn't going to affect the entire outcome of the season, and it's hard to judge on the first week because in the later part of the season is when we're going to judge how they're looking and if they are a conference champion or if they're in contention in that top 12, top 15 as you look at it. So, getting started on Thursday, Missouri took on Murray State. Brian Cook, Luther Burton, some of the top guys returning from Missouri last year, they look phenomenal. We saw Utah, obviously, with Cameron Rising returning for another year. He threw 5 touchdowns, 254 yards. He looked great for where he left off from being injured all of last season. And then we saw Kansas, number 22 in the country, Jalen Daniels, kind of tear apart Linwood. And obviously that's obvious. It's Linwood. And then Devin Neal had a great game on the ground, 112 yards, 2 touchdowns. And then Luke Grimm, 111 yards in the air on 6 receptions for 1 touchdown. Looked amazing. Going into Friday's game, we had Oklahoma taking on Temple. Oklahoma, Jax Arnold, looked great. 4 touchdowns, 141 yards. Oklahoma could be a threat now going into that transition into the SEC. Now picking up on Saturday. Two heavyweight teams. You have Clemson, you have Georgia, you have the the previous defending champions from 2022, Georgia versus Clemson, Dabo versus Kirby. And it was a good game going into the third quarter, into the second half. It was only 6-0. Very good defensive from Clemson. Very good from Georgia. As we all know, Georgia has so many weapons on the offense and defensive side that are probably going to be in the draft next year. You have the number 2 defensive prospect in Mikael Williams. On the defensive side, you have Carson Beck, who is a Heisman favorite, who played a very good game, only missed 11 of his passes. He had 2 touchdowns. He had a QBR of 91.7. Him as a quarterback, watching him play, the way he reads the defense, the way he goes through his progressions, makes him an unbelievable quarterback. And probably I think he's better than Stanton Bennett when he was there. Maybe better than Jake Fromm. I think this is probably the most talented quarterback that Georgia has had since Matthew Stafford. I like what they did, and then they just go out in the second half and turn into a different Georgia team than the one that we all know that is a two-time national championship in the last 5 years. Um, they end up putting 34 points up on Clemson. Clemson only gets 3. And then on the Clemson side, struggles again from Kate Klubnik, struggles from the running backs, from Mafe, from Keith Adams. Not really going anywhere. Dabo, it's going to be that same Clemson kind of atmosphere of what are we going to get from Clemson? Are they back to mediocre? Are they just going to be okay? Are they even going to make the playoffs? Are they going to be returning to the ACC championship game? We don't know. There's a stronger teams, I think. I think Florida State is maybe a stronger team, but you never know. So that'll be interesting to watch all season. Then you have the number 2 team, Ohio State, taking on Akron. Slow start, but Will Howard started to find his groove. Travion Henderson, Quinshawn Judkis, great tandem. I think Travion Henderson, we saw a lot of Judkis in the first half, and then Travion Henderson more in the second. I think Travion Henderson should start more of the games because if you watch it, Travion Henderson had more success on the ground than Judkis. Judkis did get that touchdown, but oh no, Ohio State is scary. And then you talk about the number 1 prospect in the country, Jeremiah Smith. 6 receptions, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. He is the next Ohio State receiver that's going to be great. They still got Mbuka. They still got Carnell Tate. They got a team that can go all the way. And you talk about the team that spent, what was it, $20 million in NIL money to but bring back JT Tumali, Denzel Burke, Latham Ransom, Cody Simons, just to name a few. They brought those guys back. Jack Sawyer to compete for national championship. To compete. They bring in a Judkis. They bring in Will Howard, who played phenomenal. He started off slow, but kind of found his rhythm towards the second half. They bring back Jordan Hancock. They bring back Sonny Styles. They bring in a Caleb Downs. They got a great team. Now, can they use that to compete for national championship against the big dogs of the Georgias and the Alabamas and the Clemsons of the world and the Oregons and Michigan? It will be an interesting game for them all season long. And their biggest test will be October 12th, going to the Oz-Tune Stadium in Eugene, Oregon to take on the Oregon Ducks, which I'll talk about Oregon in a little bit. But Ohio State looks like the real deal. They are reloaded. You got Ryan Day, who's a phenomenal coach. A lot of people were saying Ohio State should fire Ryan Day, should go get a new coach. Problem is there's no realistic coach to go get, and I don't think there's any other coach right now better than Ryan Day out there. Kalen DeBoer was out there, but I don't think Kalen DeBoer is a better coach than Ryan Day. The only coach that you could probably go get that would have been out there, but he's retired, is Nick Saban. He's not coming back, and I don't see him going to Ohio State anytime soon. He is the best coach. Then you bring in a Chip Kelly. We're talking about Bill O'Brien coming in and revamping his offense. He leaves, you go out and get a Chip Kelly, a guru who made Marcus Mariota, the guy that is a phenomenal offensive coordinator, offensive-minded. Ryan Day's defensive-minded. You put those two together, it's an unbelievable pairing. Ohio State just showed why they're the number 2 team in the country. Now going to Oregon, we talk about Oregon. A lot of growing pains to watch from them. Dylan Gabriel, 2 touchdowns. He did throw for 380 yards. But this Idaho team is a really good Idaho team in the FCS. They gave Oregon a very good hard time playing them. We saw a lot of we saw a lot of growing pains. This is a new team, a lot of new players. Let them take a few games to adjust. Gabriel in a new system with new players. It's not the same team. It's not the same team we saw from last year that throwing 27-point differential against teams to lead the FBS last year. This is not a Bo Nix team. They don't have Troy Franklin. They don't have Bucky Irving. So it's going to take some time to get used to, and it's week one. And something that was said over the broadcast is that it hit the nail on the head. They get no preseason, so they don't get warm-up games. They get camp, spring game, game. They don't get like the NFL preseason. So they're not – the first team jitters are going to be there. But all in all, Dylan Gabriel had a great game. Completed all but 8 passes, 2 touchdowns. He looked phenomenal. But give credit to Idaho, putting a clinic on Oregon, keeping it 14-0 to half, and shutting Oregon out in the third. It's definitely going to take time for Oregon to adjust with this new team, but I like what I saw from the defense. Jordan Burke was havoc, stepping up in that Brandon Dorless. Mateo Ungalele had a phenomenal game. Kobe Savage played great. Jabbar Muhammad played great. The one thing we need, who needs to be healthy, Jeffrey Paso. We have some of the best linebackers like Devin Jackson, Justin Jacobs. Devin Jackson probably one of the fastest linebackers in the country. But they need their quarterback on defense, and that is Jeffrey Paso. He wears the green dot. He gets the calls from the defensive coordinator, from Tosh. He needs to be out there, and you could see Idaho was exploiting the middle of the field when Jeffrey Paso went down and didn't come back in the game. They really missed that. And when you have someone like him in your defense to control the defense, to control the plays, that's what you need. And for that was a big loss going to Oregon. It could have been worse if they kept exploiting that. But all in all, I like what I saw, but there's definitely improvement from Oregon. Going to Texas, Quinn Ewers had a great game. He killed Colorado State. I think everybody knew that going in to it. And then we saw Bama go out and kill Western Kentucky in Caleb DeBoer's first game as a Alabama Roll Tide, Crimson Tide. Jalen Milroe, 3 touchdowns, 200 yards. Played great. We saw something from the receiving core, Ryan Williams, Kobe Prentice. We saw that Ryan Williams, 2 receptions, but he popped off for 2 great touchdowns, long-run touchdowns. Jalen Milroe's 2 on the ground, 3 in the air. The only thing really is Jalen only threw the ball 9 times. So, how is that going to, against a Western Kentucky team? And they ran the ball. My question is, how is that going to work against the Georgias and the Oklahomas and the Texas of the SEC? You got to be able to throw the ball. You're going to have to be able to keep up throwing the ball. I know it's Western Kentucky, but you got to find a way to throw the ball. We saw last year with Penn State, with Drew Aller, can't keep up with these teams because he's not throwing the ball enough. He's not throwing the ball. Yes, Jalen Milroe's throw for 200 yards. He only threw 9 passes, but 200 yards. That's because 2 of them were like 69-plus yard touchdowns, to be exact. If you look at it, he threw for 2 like long touchdowns. So it's not like they were anything special. He threw a 64-yarder to Ryan Williams in the first quarter, and then he threw a 55-yarder to Jalen Milroe. From Jalen Milroe to Ryan Williams again. So that's 2 plays over 100 yards. That's why your stats are going to look like what they look like. But all in all, good game from Alabama. Good win for Caleb DeBoer's team. We saw from Penn State in the delay game, Drew Aller, 3 touchdowns. Noah Singleton, 114 yards. He is one of the best running backs to find the hole. He is the best east-west runner. He runs the sideline. But he also can turn it up and go north-south when he needs to. I liked what I saw from Penn State. They did start off a little slow. I honestly thought in West Virginia and Morgantown, West Virginia was going to come with the upset, but Drew Aller stepped up big, and I think give all credits to their new offensive coordinator that I got from Kansas. That air raid from the Big 12 coming over to Penn State, because I think that's what Drew Aller missed last season. They get that, they'll be set. Michigan struggled. Michigan, they struggled against Fresno. They didn't really pop off until the end of the game in the fourth quarter, scoring 17 in the fourth. Big question was who was going to start, Alex Orji or Davis Warren. They went with Davis Warren. Davis Warren, 15 of 25, 118 yards, one touchdown, one interception. Was that the right decision? I would have went with Alex Orji. I think he's more that prototype, but it's going to be an interesting year for Michigan because they lost 12 players to the draft starters on both offense and defense. Donovan Edwards had a rough game, 11 carries, 27 yards, 0 touchdowns. It's going to be interesting to see that running back duo because you've already seen it. It's been Hassan Reddick and Blake Corum or Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum. Now it's going to be Kale Mullings, who had a good game, 92 yards, 15 carries, averaged 5.1 carries after contact. And then from the receiving core, Colston Loveland is probably going to be their main target all season, losing Roman Wilson, their main target last year. But it will be interesting how long they ride Davis Warren before they switch to Alex Orji. Sharon Moore got a lot of factors going for him on play, on the field, and off the field. So we'll see how we'll kind of watch Michigan as a whole throughout the season to see if they are going to be in the playoffs. Other than big games, we saw Miami, Florida. The team, Cam Ward, looked very good. A Heisman candidate again, 3 touchdowns, 385 yards. Looked amazing. Arizona, they had a great game against New Mexico. Noah Fiat, 4 touchdowns, 422 yards. Terrell McMillan, showing why he's one of the best receivers in the country. Him and Luther Burton might be 1 and 2 best. Terrell McMillan, 10 receptions, 304 yards, 4 touchdowns. That's scary. He is a very good receiver on that Arizona team. It'll be an interesting season for Arizona in the Big 12. They have a shot to win the Big 12. I think they're one of the favorites. I think you can give one to them, probably Oklahoma State and Utah as your favorites. They just really good. I know it wasn't against a great opponent in New Mexico, but still a great game. And then the big game that took place that on Saturday night at Kyle Field at College Station, Notre Dame versus Texas A&M, a very hard-fought defensive game we saw from Texas A&M and Notre Dame. I like what I saw from Texas A&M. Mike Elko is a great coach. Mike Elko is a defensive-minded coach, which I love. They had a great game. Nick Scout had a great pressure. Des Ricks played very well. Shamar Turner played great. But Notre Dame just got the win in the end. It was pretty much he had the ball with the last 2 minutes left. We saw from Jeremiah Love, scores the winning touchdown. Riley Leonard, very consistent. Didn't turn the ball over. Connor Weigman, 2 interceptions, not great. Only 100 yards. Would have loved to see more production from him. He just didn't get the help from the receivers, from Jahad Walker and Cyrus Allen, which makes sense because you're talking about a defense that is very good on the cornerbacks with Benjamin Morris and Xavier Watts, probably one of the best tandems in the country, other than the boys at Ohio State and the boys at Oregon and the boys at Georgia. They have a really good team. I like what I saw, but Notre Dame, Riley Leonard, that prototypical Notre Dame quarterback, I like him a lot. Stepping in for Sam Hartman is going to be a great asset for them going forward. And then we talk about last night's game, Sunday night, LSU versus USC. Lincoln Riley, this offensive-minded genius with never had a really good defense. How can their defense hold up? Their defense stepped up, and we saw some of the promise from Miller Moss had a great game. We saw Woody Marks score the winning touchdown. Go ahead with about 18 seconds left. Miller Moss, that 2-minute drive or minute 30 drive, goes 75 yards for a touchdown to set them up for that touchdown. Thinking they're going to go to kick a field goal. They get lucky with that targeting call that ejected their safety from LSU. They struggled again. They lose another season opener. But I liked what I saw from Harold Perkins. They kind of kept him at bay, though. He did get a couple pressures to Miller Moss, but other than that, they really kept one of the best edge rushers in college football quiet. And then we saw from their offense, Zachariah Branch had a great game, and then a couple of great catches from Kyron Hudson. He had the great, ridiculous one-handed catch. I'm in double coverage, and then he holds on with the targeting call, holds on to that one-handed catch that sets him up for that run because it would have been a longer field goal, sets him up, gets him closer. Woody Marks runs it in, the transfer from Mississippi State. But I like what I saw from Miller Moss. They're in that new era without Caleb Williams, without Marshawn Lloyd, without Brendan Rice, Tahaji Washington, a lot of their playmakers from last year, so people are stepping up like Zachariah Branch, Kyron Hudson, Lake Murray, Jacob Lane. They're all stepping up next in line. And then from the LSU side, Garrett Nussmeier, he played great. It's just, unfortunately, one of those times it's, can you capitalize when you have that opportunity? LSU missed a couple opportunities to score and take that lead. But I like what I saw from LSU. But once again, this is week one. One loss isn't going to matter that much anymore because it is a 12-team playoff now. All in all, I like what I saw from this week. Oh, and then to touch on the last game, my team, Cincinnati Bearcats, they took on Townsend. I love what I saw from Brandon Sorby. He's that quarterback we needed. I don't think we had with Emery Moore, and we haven't had since Desmond Ridder, who can really throw the ball well and use his legs. We didn't have Dante Corleone, which hopefully he comes back soon because we'll need him in that middle in the run game. But I love what I saw from Xavier Henderson, Corey Kiner. The offensive line looked great. It's very experienced. So going on forward, I feel like we'll have a great season. And I think that this year, with a year under Coach Satterfield, I think we can improve. But yeah. And then talking about kind of my predictions for the college football playoffs, I will give out my predictions for this upcoming 12-team playoff. I think that this will be a fun year because the way college football is going to look this year with the new 12-team playoffs, you're going to have your conference champions, and then outside of that, it goes to your next highest rank. So I think out of the SEC, I think Georgia still is the favorite. I think Bama's close. Oklahoma, Texas, they're kind of there. I don't think they're close to Georgia, though. That's the one thing that, unfortunately, they're not there yet. Georgia is still the top dog in the SEC. Now, in the Big Ten, I want to say, not to be biased, I'm going to say Oregon. But it's really going to come down to that October 12th game. Whoever wins October 12th, Oregon, Ohio State will win the Big Ten. I'm leaning towards Oregon, but you could put Ohio State there. That's why that one's a tough one. That's the toughest one out of anyone to pick. Coming out of the ACC, I have Florida State. They could be there, but I doubt it. They're going to struggle, I feel like, again. Like, Kate Klubnik is not really that quarterback they need. They need a better quarterback, and I don't think he's the answer. Coming out of the Big 12, I like Utah. Utah is probably the favorites. I think Cincinnati can have a bounce back year, but I don't think they're going to be there. And then the teams outside of them, I think it will be Bama, Ohio State, or Oregon, whoever's not the champion. but they'll get second. Texas, Penn State, Michigan might actually. No, I don't think Michigan will be there. Ole Miss, I'm gonna take honestly Arizona, and then so you have the four, and then you have Alabama. For hindsight, I'll say Ohio State. So that's 6. 7, you'll have Ole Miss. 8, I'll take Penn State. 10, Arizona. 11, Notre Dame. And then Texas at 12. Though not in that order, I'm just going to say those are the 12 teams I could see getting into the college football playoffs. That's my prediction. But we'll regroup once they announce like the first rankings and everything else. But I hope you guys enjoyed. Kept it 30 minutes. Didn't want to dive into too much detail. It's hard to dissect after week 1 because a lot of these teams aren't playing certain competitions that you can really dissect from it. Except for like the Clemson, Georgia, LSU, USC team competitions. It's hard to dissect teams going up against like FCS teams or lower FBS teams because it's warm-up games for them. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we'll see that change and see how teams throughout the season go. But hope you guys enjoyed. That was my recap from watching these games this week. I love that college football is back. Hopefully we'll come out with a new soccer episode with the boys, and then also we'll be coming out with my predictions this week leading into the NFL. I'll probably do that Wednesday. My preview on Wednesday will be like that big leading up to the game on Thursday to kick off the NFL season. Hope you guys enjoyed. Check this out soon. It'll probably be released tomorrow. Catch on the flip and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And then if you like listening to podcasts, go check us out on Spotify. And if you like watching them, go check us out on YouTube at the Net to Net Podcast channel. Peace.